Hey guys, Attorney Walter Knott. I do not have the lights perfect. I know that I'm trying to get them a little bit better right now. And here's the thing, I'm actually in New Jersey right now, going ahead and trying to get everything rolling, get everything completed. I'm going to move lights around a little bit as we continue to go through this. But here's kind of the bottom line of what you need to know. We're going to be doing a video right now specifically about the bare bone economic principles that would equate to essentially a situation where a fourth stimulus could potentially happen. Now, I know the lighting's not perfect like you're used to in the regular studio. I am in New Jersey working on the horse farm, which I know you guys saw. I don't even have hail. But the point is, I want to educate you guys specifically on how this works when it comes to a fourth stimulus being imminent. Now, there would need to be a perfect storm of things occurring. But in order to go into that, we first must talk about the basic economic principles that would allow for a fourth stimulus to occur. First off, let's define recession. A recession is a macroeconomic term that refers to a significant decline in general economic activity in a designated region. It has, and remember, this is from Investopedia, it had been typically recognized as 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline, as reflected by the gross domestic product in conjunction with monthly indicators such as a rise in unemployment. However, the National Bureau of Economic Research, which officially declares recession, says the 2 consecutive quarters of decline in real GDP are not how it is defined anymore. The NBER, National Bureau of Economic Research, defines a recession as a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, gross domestic product, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. So those are their elements for defining essentially what a recession is. Now, why are we defining essentially what a recession is? So you've got two basic options here. You have option number one. If the government is able to do a really good job of balancing a recession or balancing basically us against inflation, then we should be on that narrow path back to a good economy. But unfortunately, and here's the big thing, if they are not successful, meaning if they are not able to keep that magical perfect line where they keep us on the straight and narrow, then we could potentially tip one way or we could potentially tip the other way. And when that occurs, we either get essentially inflation or some form of a recession. And then in the really, really bad instances, we end up with, unfortunately, both at the same time. All right, let's talk about the different types of inflation. That way you guys understand inflation now. There's creeping inflation, and this is specifically from, let's see, it's IIFL Securities. Looks like indiainfoline.com. Creeping inflation. This is also known as mild inflation or moderate inflation. The type of inflation occurs when the price level persistently rises over a period of time at a mild rate. When the rate of inflation is less than 10% annually, or it is a single-digit inflation rate, it is considered to be a moderate inflation. They're trying to push politically through the White House, through different agencies, that this is what we're in, a mild creeping inflation. We're not in that. We are in the next step up. Next step up, what we are actually in is a galloping inflation. If mild inflation is not checked, and if it is uncontrollable, it may assume the character of galloping inflation. Inflation is the double or triple digit range of 100 or 200% a year, which is called galloping inflation. Many Latin American countries such as Argentina, Brazil had inflation rates of 50 to 700% per year in the 1970s and 80s. That's when they instituted, of course, the form of government that we never want in this country, which is a form that seems to be very popular right now, but would destroy the retired and the disabled, which we don't want communism. The next level beyond that is hyperinflation. It is a stage of very high rate of inflation. While economies seem to survive under galloping inflation, a third and deadly strain takes hold when the cancer of hyperinflation strikes. Nothing good can be said about a market economy in which prices are rising 1,000,000 or even 1,000,000,000% per year. Hyperinflation occurs when the prices go out of control and the monetary authorities are unable to impose any check on it. Germany had witnessed hyperinflation in the 1920s. Next one. Stagflation is an economic situation in which inflation, economic stagnation, or recession occur simultaneously and remain unchecked for a period of time. Stagflation was witnessed by developed countries in the 1970s when world oil prices rose dramatically. Deflation. Deflation is the reverse of inflation. It refers to a sustained decline in the price level of goods and services. It occurs when the annual inflation rate falls below 0%, negative inflation rate, resulting in an increase in the real value of money. Japan suffered from deflation for almost a decade in the 1990s. That's when they basically lost a lot of funds that they had. Now, let me walk you through what this means. Let me help you understand what's going on. We have basically a problem. And the problem is that if we have a recession, or if we have essentially our moderate level of inflation, which is what we have right now, which is called galloping inflation, become a more severe inflation, hyperinflation, then the American people, the disabled, the retired on their monthly checks will not inherently have enough to go ahead and afford basic items such as food, afford basic items such as toilet paper, tissues, toothbrushes, etc., in which case a fourth stimulus will be required. If a recession occurs, meaning that basically the economy just totally, is unable to go ahead and catch up to where it needs to be, GDP is very, very low, etc., then we have another problem because all of a sudden the people that are paying into the system to keep the retired and the disabled receiving their checks are not going to be paying into the system like they need to go ahead and keep those checks going to those individuals such as the retired or the disabled. So if we have this recession occur, or we have essentially inflation occur beyond the galloping inflation that we're already, feeling right now, then what will occur is very simple. What will occur is the government will have to force some sort of fourth stimulus specifically for those who are on essentially a monthly restricted payment system, whether that's retirement benefits or disability benefits. This is what would force a fourth stimulus. Now, right now, because we have essentially galloping inflation, they're afraid to go ahead and do a fourth stimulus to all the retired and the disabled. Because if you give the retired and the disabled a bunch of money, they're going to spend it on goods. They're going to go to the grocery store. They're going to buy shoes. They're going to go to Amazon. And then when all those items are purchased and they want to buy more items, those items are not going to be replaced quickly and easily enough, which means that the price of those items goes up and the value of the dollar goes down, which means that essentially we're put in a terrible position. That would increase our current inflation problem. Now, I see all these other YouTube accounts promoting this idea, this entity that, oh, wow, it's amazing. We're going to get a fourth stimulus. Oh, there's all these ideas, 1,400 plus 1,000 or 2,000 a month, all this stuff. It's all lies. All of it is a lie. There is no legislation that anybody is seriously thinking about that is sitting on the table in the committees that will pass to create a $2,000 a month or a 2,000 check or a $1,400 check or a $1,000 bonus. None of that exists. It's all BS. So the thing is this: we could potentially see a fourth stimulus if we see more extreme, essentially, this galloping turning into hyperinflation, or if we see a very bad recession. The federal government is aware that the American people are about to suffer, and I'm sure they're aware as well that above all, the retired and the disabled are going to suffer the most. Unfortunately, from what I've seen doing these programs and working with these different individuals for so long, is that at the end of the day, the people who basically get helped out the most quickly are those who are, young females with kids, those who are on welfare-based programs, but not including SSI. So as a result of that, what we hope to see this time with President Biden is that he acknowledges it's just not the women with kids, it's not just those who are receiving welfare, whether it's a demographic thing, whether it's an age thing, whether it's a sex thing based upon if they're male or female, etc. We hope to see them immediately approach the retired and immediately approach the disabled and seek to assist them, which would equate to, as you've been seeing, a fourth stimulus. That is what would have to happen for the fourth stimulus to occur. It would have to be quite literally a perfect storm. Now, let me explain really quickly. And here, I'll boost this up a little bit because I know it's not bright enough. Here we go. Let me get that going like that. Okay. So let me explain really quickly something that I think is incredibly important, but I don't think they're giving enough information to. If this were to happen, right? If there were to be a scenario where you had really, really bad hyperinflation, all the products would be going up and, eggs would be $15, $20. Milk would be $15, $20. A gallon of gas would be $20. It would be extreme prices. You wouldn't be able to exist. You wouldn't be able to live. You would essentially be starved as a disabled or retired person because you wouldn't be able to afford anything on the checks that you receive from the government. They would have to do their own version of a COLA increase on top of that as a result of the recession, and then probably stimulus payments on top of that. And in which case, you would be seeing some form of universal basic income towards the disabled and retired just to keep them alive. That's a bad day. You don't want that. That's a bad day. You'll see other channels selling ideas like, "Oh, wow, it could happen if the." That's a bad thing. You don't want that. That is extreme. You don't want that. We're headed there right now with how the government is being run at the White House, but that's unfortunately it is what it is, and we're not going to be able to fix that in this video. The recession thing you're all used to. The entire Obama presidency was a recession. If we're really honest with ourselves, the Obama presidency was really great for immigrants, really great for social justice. It was one of the worst in the history of all American presidents for economic growth, stability, etc. I remember watching, I remember when he got in, I was in my master's program, my MBA, and my extremely liberal professors could not explain to me why he was doing the things that he was doing in the very beginning and why he was proposing these things. I can tell you this, we all knew, except the news sold it to people that don't understand economics, don't understand the basic math of how an economy works. And CNN and MSNBC have been doing this for a while, but they'll take a large group of people that dictate how much their ad revenue is going to be worth, and they teach to them incorrect economic models. And as a result of that, you end up with highly uneducated and educated in an incorrect way people who think the economy works one way when it doesn't work that way. You know, it's the kind of crap you'd see from like YouTube channels being like, if this is what you think is right, then they're all wrong. All the experts are wrong. This is the truth. That's the kind of crap that they would sell people. And as a result of that, we saw the longest recession, which is actually, it was a depression. That's what we have to be fair. It was a depression that this country may have ever seen. I want to point out something basic here. The retired and the disabled only do well as inherent groups when the dollar is the most strong that it can be. Basic economic principles. Let me explain why. If the dollar is really strong, then that means your buying power with the small check that you get each month goes farther. You can buy more stuff with it. If the dollar is strong, that means more people are earning money and paying money in taxes, which means that those trust funds, those mega, super, ultra trust funds, are growing and growing and growing at a much faster rate. Those two basic principles define why you, as disabled and retired people, want to have the best potential economy to live in. That's not what's sold on the news. Fox News doesn't even sell that stuff. So I need you to understand the basic principles of economics here. As a disabled and retired person, you want the economy to recover as quickly as possible because it means your dollar is going to go farther, and it means more people are going to be paying taxes into the system to fund the trust fund. And for the retired people, worry about that because in 10 years, the trust fund is going to run out and you're only going to get 76, 70%, 77% of what you were supposed to get for that year. And I don't know why all the channels aren't telling you about this. To me, I think they'd get a ton of YouTube views. But then again, I'm obviously an idiot when it comes to YouTube subscribers and views because I only got 36,000 people, whereas they've got 300,000 plus people. There's another thing that I need you to understand about the economy and how it works for the disabled and the retired. When the economy is going well, there tends to be a lot of people pushing the agenda that, the retired and disabled should get back to work. And that's not always a negative thing. And let me explain why. There's a lot of disabled people who want to do little work or part-time work or side gig work or whatever. And when the economy is total crap, those jobs don't exist. I think one thing that's incredibly important that we don't acknowledge as an economic doctrine is that the self-worth of a person is usually tied to the worth of the purpose, or at least what worth they give it, as they live their life. So the more worth they give to the purpose that they're doing, whether it's washing a car, building a guitar, whatever, the happier they're going to be. So I think the real purpose here is we want the disabled, if they want to do a little part-time gig, to be able to do that. I know people who are missing legs. They have this part-time gig they want to do. I know people who are having really bad depression and want to go help other people with depression, but they can't get paid to do it, which always blinds me. We have all these like people that are like supposed experts, and the real experts are the people who are surviving with it. But the thing is this. Um, I think that we want a strong economy because we want to essentially allow the retired and the disabled to have a strong dollar and then also have the opportunity to do little gig jobs if they want them. There's another thing that I need to tell you guys about, which I think is really important. When the economy is the most strong, there's the least amount of anxiety and depression among the disabled and also the retired. But you see it more, prevalent with the disabled. As a result of that, as a disability attorney, that would be against me, right? Because I wouldn't have as many claimants coming to my law firm to say, "Hey, go win my disability benefits for anxiety, depression, etc." But that's not really my goal. My goal is to get people to be happy overall. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing that nonprofit idea, vote to protect the disabled. I wouldn't be doing Space Constitution to build the future constitutions of the human race in space. I wouldn't be doing these things. So, I've never been great at the whole idea of sales, which is why I'm one of the more poor attorneys out there. But I will tell you this: we want people to have less anxiety and depression because future generations, their kids, their kids' kids, the kids that are somehow attached to them, whether they're nieces or nephews, will be able to go ahead and have a much stronger lifestyle going forward in achieving whatever their dreams are. If you gave Elon Musk, right, a very different start, where he didn't have all the money, he didn't have the training to do coding, we would have ended up with a very different outcome, which is another thing. If you didn't have me have a lot of training in chess, have a lot of training in lacrosse, have a lot of training in high level of education, the Blue Blazer Moravian Academy School I went to, all that. If we didn't have these beginnings, we would not achieve not only the knowledge, but also the landscape of ideas to go ahead and help the general public with. I want to say this, and I think it's important. In America, the country seems to be making more and more people feel alone and lonely and afraid. And empires that want to essentially take over a group of humans, the first thing they'll do is they'll make them feel like there's no way that they can win. And then they'll make them feel alone. Then they'll make them feel like they don't have the resources to be able to survive, but for a little bit. And they'll give them then just the slightest bit of hope and the slightest bit of resources to be able to exist so that they don't try to topple the government. They have enough to get through it, but they don't have enough to do anything to go against that entity. We are at this point becoming more and more like a conquered race of beings as humans. The American people are becoming conquered by their government, if we haven't already been conquered in total. And as a result of that, we have destroyed the importance of a single human. I want to point something out. We always look at certain humans and we give all this wow credit factor to it. Like, for example, let's say Einstein, brilliant man. Pretty much to some degree, you could say he was the main figure for ending World War II because of the technology knowledge that he put out there. A lot of people don't know about that, but that's okay. There's another thing, you look at a lot of great figures in human history. But if Mother Teresa were born today, she would not be famous. She would not be famous. She just wouldn't. And that's because what we consider to be important and famous is whatever they put up on TV. And what they put up on TV, I don't even know. It's the Real Housewives, stuff like that. I mean, even Snooki rejected being on the Real Housewives. We've gotten that to that level, to that low a bar of society. So I want to point out to you the importance of approaching future humans. Education, crucial, but not only that, we don't celebrate humans as individuals anymore. We keep seeing this thing as an American nation where it's like, well, we don't want to be Americans because we don't want, other countries look down on us because we're Americans. We're the only country that promotes historically and going to the future freedom and growing with more freedom. Even though we're not doing that right now, that's our goal as Americans, to grow with more freedom to human beings. And when we de-celebrate or remove celebration of human beings, and we just focus on these groups, oh, this big nonprofit said this, and oh, this agency that said that, we get away from the individual. And when we get away from the individual, we create basically unimportant human beings. Everybody's part of a committee. Everybody's part of an agency, a group. Nobody's important, but the agency and group and the name of them are. And that's a problem because it essentially decentralizes what makes America so great, which are the people. The land is the land. It's rocks, it's dirt, it's soil, it's, water that comes up to it's that's what it is. It's basic elements on Earth above a crust layer. You could find many of these same functions in Europe, many of these same functions in China. Okay. My point to you is we need to start to celebrate humans in a new way through appreciation. So I think that these are some basic things that we can start doing to help with the situation. All right. Now I see Lynn Hutchins. We the seniors need help now. I agree. If I were a politician, I would create a 50-point plan of what we could do for the seniors, a 50-point plan for what we could do for the disabled. But I would be removed from office immediately because that is not the agenda of the government. The agenda of the government is to keep the government just moving forward and the people quiet. That's it. That's how it works at this point. I know that a lot of you don't like that. I would suggest that you vote out every single person that is in politics right now on both sides. And I would suggest that you vote in people who have concrete plans and a timeline as to when they will actually be released. I am very fearful as to what's going to happen to the retired and the disabled. We all know that the retired are specifically hurting right now because of the whole COVID situation. And we know that the disabled are similarly very difficult times. But I want to point out this real quick. If Americans, the people, the human beings in America, have been conquered, you're living in the finest state in the world for people to win back their freedom. It's almost like our business to open the business of making freedom relevant again. When any other country, India, China, Australia, looks at freedom and who has the most freedom and who has the most armory to go ahead and defend their freedom, we're always number one. We're living in the right country. Yeah, we need term limits for all these politicians. And frankly, what we need at this point is we need to reevaluate what freedoms we want to keep and how we're going to expand freedoms going forward, which is the whole idea of space constitution, which, with all the time I'm working on the farm right now because of the holiday session, everything, it's been tough for me to get to everything. So guys, that's basically what I wanted to tell you. Is there a potential for a fourth stimulus? Yes, but only under extreme circumstances. I myself don't even contemplate those happening because it would be far worse for you to be in those situations and get a little stimulus than to not. So I just wanted to promote these ideas to you. I hope you have a wonderful night. We're going to be doing videos after this, specifically on demographics, because the SSA released demographics on particular groups, and I'm going to do videos on them. It's going to be on African Americans, American Indians, and Alaska Natives, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, Hispanics, young people, and women. So I'm going to go through all these demographics that they released. Hopefully you guys will learn something from it, understand it. But the bottom line is you have to go ahead and know the statistics in order to start to shape the future. So that's what I want to give you. Guys, I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Yeah, I'm super tired. I drove up from New Jersey, or I drove up from Florida to New Jersey. That's a 20-hour drive. I then started working that same day, worked all day, and then basically at the end of the day took a shower, and here I am on the video. So I'll catch you guys a little bit later. Have a wonderful night, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Alrighty, guys. I'll catch you later. Bye bye.